Welcome to What's Your Signal, the podcast exploring the latest trends in digital transformation, network security, and the ways we connect people, places, and things. You're joined by me, Taylor Walker, and my co-host, Mauricio Stefan. Hey, Mauricio.
Hi, Taylor. How's it hanging?
Oh, good. Um, okay, this was a little ways back, but do you remember the social media craze where people ask their friends and their boyfriends and their husbands about how often they think about the Roman Empire? Did you ever see this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say something? I was thinking about the Roman Empire.
Nice. Okay, this might surprise you, but my Roman Empire is fire trucks. I'm literally like a toddler. I think they're so cool. And last Thanksgiving, my partner, who's a firefighter, had to work. So I brought a couple of pies down to the station and we ate with his crew. And then I did a ride along for a few hours and I was in total awe. I felt like a little kid getting excited over the lights and the sirens and just like the knowledge and preparedness that these guys need to go through to do their jobs effectively. And that's why I'm especially excited about today's guests. So, in a past episode, we explored the benefits of cellular for mission critical communications. And today, in the same vein, we're discussing using cellular to create network resiliency in fire stations. So, John Craig, a systems manager from Avon Fire and Rescue over in the UK, and Graham Everington, who's a regional sales manager from Ericsson in the same location, are here to help. So, let's get into it. So, John, Graham, thanks for joining us. I want to start with some background on the Avon Fire story. So, John, can you tell us a little bit about Avon Fire and Rescue, like where you guys are located and kind of the area that you serve?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So thank you very much. Yes. So Avon Fire and Rescue Service, we're based in the southwest of England, and we've got uh, quite a large area that we cover, sort of approximately 135,000 hectares of land that we actually cover. We've got a population of approximately 1.1 million civilians, and 450,000 homes that we currently serve. We've got quite a large risk area as well. So we've got an international airport based in Bristol. We've got 5 motorways throughout the area, of which 2 are connected across to Wales, the country of Wales, across the Bristol Channel. So that's another area of risk for us. We've got 4 universities. We've got a major port in Avonmouth, shipping port, and we've got a nuclear power station as well within our area. So if you were to look at it on a map, it's quite a small sort of county, as we call it in England. But obviously, it's quite populous, and it's obviously got a lot of associated risk. So yeah, so we proudly serve those 1.1 million civilians within that risk area. So
That's a huge variety of like situations that your fire teams can get into.
yeah, absolutely that. Yeah, it is, and it draws a lot of skill set from those associated stations. So we've got particular stations that have focused sort of skills, if you like, and they're geographically placed, due to that associated risk. So yeah.
So in those stations, I mean, kind of the focus today is maybe a little more on the station connectivity, right? And
Yeah.
so in those stations, can you tell me a little bit about like the applications that they're using and the things that they need to have connected at the stations, whether they're specialized or not?
Yeah, so obviously, the connectivity to the stations. Each of our we've got 21 stations around our area. Each of those stations have what we call a station end cabinet within the station, and so that station end cabinet has all the communications equipment that we would here at Control mobilize directly to the station. So they're quite. There's nothing unique in as much as each station will have the same amount of equipment. Um, so that would be like obviously we've got the cradle point routers on the end of the stations. We've got fire coders as well on the station ends, and that's the main connectivity between the station and fire control based here at Lansdowne in Bath. But to that end, once said station is mobilised and the appliance is mobilised, the actual applications on the end of the fire truck, if you like. We've got mobile data terminals. So we have like a mobile data terminal in the front of the truck We've within the last few months, we've now deployed rear mobile data terminals, so the crews have got a mobile data terminal in the back of the truck. The one in the front is fixed. The one in the rear is demountable, so that can be used in fireground operations as well. So, and then we've also got airwave radios, fireground radios, and as far as applications go, we've got what's called SC Response, which is the application that sits on the mobile data terminal for the crews.
So the cellular solution that you have in place at the stations, let's look at a little bit before that was there. So what were you using before the current solution that you have, and why wasn't that working, or why did you have to look for something new?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is all down to resilience, which is a key word that we consistently use, because obviously that's how we operate. We have to be able to act on any eventuality. So we when we take a fire call here based at Lansdowne in Bath, we would mobilise the appropriate fire appliances. Their fire coder would take that sort of message from our fire control room, and it would that would actually go down via the wide area network. That's our primary bearer to the station. That's the one we primarily rely on. But there are instances where that will go down. So historically, we used what was called a PACnet bearer, and that was a radio bearer that was sat on the fire coder also. And it was a radio-based technology. We'd had it for sort of 30 years, approximately a long time. Um, and as well as that, we also historically had a PSTN bearer. So that's like a phone line, effectively. Many years ago, 6-7 years ago, we actually got rid of the PSTN. So we just relied purely on primary and secondary bearer. So the secondary bearer was end of life. So we were told by the supplier that the PACnet bearer was going to be rescinded. I think it was around March 22. So we had good notice, but as you probably are aware, time flies by very quickly. So we engaged heavily with Cradlepoint. We engaged heavily with Talent, Multitone. It really was bringing the experts and the vendors together to try and help us with a new solution. So that's how the relationship with Cradlepoint was born, and to that end, we've now got this fantastic solution on the end of each and every one of our fire stations.
It's really interesting, John and Taylor, about the PSTN turn-off, because that's what is really sort of topical now in the UK. So the PSTN bearer that John talked about is going to be turned off. It's the old analog system, essentially, in the UK is going to be turned off sort of by January 2027. So a lot of John's colleagues in different forces are also looking now at this type of solution, but from a PSTN migration point of view as well.
Yes, this is it. So yeah, so we were quite fortuitous in as much as a localized decision was made for us to remove PSTN as a bearer, where we had three. We had primary, secondary, and tertiary. But obviously, when we learned that the PACnet was going to be removed, that was a major concern for us. That was a real sort of red flag. We had to react, quickly, and we did. And so, we're really happy because we've obviously got this fantastic new solution that brings so much more benefits to us as well moving forward. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But yeah, we like to share, obviously. So we've, as Graham quite rightly said, we've got so many of our, other fire and rescue services within the national sort of family, if you like. And we're more than happy to, and have been having conversations where we can assist those moving forward. So.
I think you really lucked out, because I feel like a lot of times when your hand is forced, like how they were canceling that form of connectivity that you'd had in place, you don't always get lucky enough to get something that you like. Sometimes you just have to settle. And so I'm really happy to hear that you're using a solution that's making a difference for the whole agency.
No, you're quite right, but interestingly, there were other like for like solutions to that radio bearer, that PACnet bearer. There were other solutions that we did explore. But obviously, having visited many sort of events across in the national sector, we visit the emergency services show, Babco as well. All these events, and that's how the conversation came about with Cradlepoint, and we were able to look at that and all the benefits that brings us moving forward. So you're right. Our hand was forced, but at the same time, although we did look, professionally, we looked at all the solutions that were available, and some were similar. We could see another way forward that was going to benefit us, moving forward. So, yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about how the deployment went and kind of that experience, anything that you learned from that, or any just the experience overall of kind of swapping things out and getting things set up?
Yeah. So yeah, we quickly realized, like I might have said earlier, that we had to get the right people in the room, if you like. So we had lots of regular, and they turned out to be weekly in the end, meetings with both Cradlepoint and with Multitone, because they were quite instrumental, because that kit sort of hangs off the back of their fire coder, which sits on our station end. So we had regular meetings between our communications department here, like I say, Multitone, and with Cradlepoint. So that was key. I would strongly suggest to anyone else that's kind of going to be going through this journey, is to ensure that those regular meetings, so your eye isn't taken off the ball, if you like. However, the one thing we did have issues with was our SIM. So we do have SIMs in our mobile data terminals, and we looked at maybe utilizing that same SIM. But that wasn't possible. That became quite key early on. So I think it was actually Cradlepoint that actually suggested another SIM supplier which would be able to help us, and we engaged with them. So this was all to do with sort of private and public routed SIMs, and that sort of IPsec tunneling on the SIMs. So that was the issue, and we were able to overcome that, and we now use what's called a Pangea SIM. So that's like a multi-network SIM, which hits all four of the major networks in the UK. So
I don't know how this is in schools in the UK, but anytime I hear the word Pangea, I just I'm flashed back to like elementary school and learning about how all the continents fit together at one point, like Pangea. Am I
right,
the only one that remembers that? Yeah.
right, okay. Well, maybe
As soon as you said it, I just saw the image in my brain and it
yeah,
just
there we
burned
go.
in there.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. So they were really, really useful. They were really ultra helpful, and like I say, that's another, as well as there's lots of benefits. One of the major ones, and we've seen this as well. So historically, with our mobile data terminals, going way back, we kind of used one bearer. One SIM, so one network, if you like. And when we moved to our new Panasonic CF33 devices, we've now also used a SIM which gives us multi-network capability. So if it's not seeing that mast, the Vodafone mast, it will see the 3 mast, or the 4 major networks. And that's that same technology and that same principle we applied when we moved to this Cradlepoint solution. We were quite it was quite key to us that, as well as us having to overcome those public and private sort of routed SIMs, we also had to ensure that they had multi-network capability, and we've got that. So really good.
Taylor, again, we find that with most forces in the UK will go down that kind of multi-SIM kind of bearer route. So exactly as John has described. So, and just another point, and to shout out Taz. Really, Taz works. My solutions engineer in the UK works really closely with John and other forces, and is absolute asset to the organisation.
Yeah, we've got a really great working relationship with Taz. He's superb. So really good. So.
Having a good team behind you is very helpful, especially like when things are good and also when things are kind of troublesome. So I'd love to hear about kind of how having the cellular solution in place, how has that impacted your team's ability to troubleshoot issues or manage issues or see that there are even issues? If you've had that experience yet, can you tell me about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Graham's just said there is absolutely key. We find this with not just Cradlepoint, but with others as well. The relationships that we have are absolutely paramount to a successful operation. So, and we have that relationship with Cradlepoint in buckets. So yeah, so going back to the PatNet solution, it simply was very lo-fi. It was kind of radio based, and it would look for the strongest mast, hilltop site sort of mast. And we only knew about it. So we've got a very intuitive mobilizing system, command and control mobilizing system, and it would tell us if PACnet had failed, if that secondary bearer had failed. But for us to be able to correct that, we would have to ring via a landline telephone a department within that company that provides the PACnet, and speak to someone on the end of the line who would then basically point our PACnet solution at a different mast. So it was quite. So the device was lo-fi, and maybe the management of it sat behind it was quite lo-fi as well. It was very good. It kind of did its job, but from a management point of view, not so much. Now, yeah, we were amazed at the ability we now have. So the same thing applies. We have obviously reports, flash messages that tell our watches, the personnel in the command and control center. It will tell them when there is an issue with that secondary bearer, if there is one, and then they would report that to us, the control and communications team, and then we would interrogate that. And now we have that ability to be able to, via the NetCloud Cradlepoint solution, we're able to actually interrogate that portal and look at it real time. And as well as that, beyond that, there's a Pangea portal as well, so we can actually look at the SIM sort of connectivity as well. So for us, it's huge because we can now interrogate problems from afar, all around our service, and we don't have to send personnel out, to site so much. Well, I'll be truthful. In the 2 years we've now had the solution, we haven't sent any personnel to site. We've been able to do this remotely, which is
That's
just
awesome.
It's huge. We've got a great team, a strong team, but numbers. We haven't got a finite amount of numbers, and so for us to be able to interrogate those two portals from our control hub here is just superb. So.
And have you been taking advantage of anything like, do you use any bandwidth augmentation or any features like that to help the operations from the stations?
Sorry, when you say bandwidth augmentation?
Like link bonding or
SD-WAN.
SD-WAN?
No.
Nope.
Graham?
Okay.
No, sorry.
These are conversations that we are having with Avon as we move forward, as they evolve into the technology, I think. So yes, we're ongoing,
Okay.
but not used as such yet.
Yeah.
You've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, this is it. So we've got the solution, and obviously, and all the things it brings us, ESN compliance, which is a huge thing for us. We are aware that a lot of our friends around the country use the Cradlepoint solution or are currently using it and still using it on fire appliances where we don't. But that's a conversation again where we'll be having with Graham and Graham's teams about how we can move ourselves forward to look at having that connectivity on the fire ground as well within the fire trucks. So.
John, you were mentioning that looking at potentially expanding into connectivity into the vehicles. I was just wondering, is there any other kind of use cases that you guys are thinking about leveraging that cellular for? Right, you mentioned that being able to use NetCloud and the SIM portal to be able to troubleshoot those things. But have you thought about potentially using kind of like the out-of-band management feature to maybe manage or be able to access other parts of the network when they go down, or anything along those lines?
So what other parts of the network on the station ends? Yeah, these are conversations that we'll be having with Graham and his team. But yeah, this is something we'd be quite open to. I'm not sure if it's kind of related, but obviously I did mention earlier the ESN. That was another big thing for us, was the ESN connectivity for us here. So the ESN project hasn't completed yet, but it is a thing, and it's really important that any equipment that's associated on the ends of the station, on the station ends, and in operations on the fire ground as well, has that ESN compliance, and that's what certainly the Cradlepoint solution gives us. It gives us that comfort that we've got that ESN compliance. So if this is something that we can, if there's other elements that we can connect to using the router on the stations, then that's something we'd be 100% open to. Yes.
And ESN, just for folks listening, that's like FirstNet in the US, very similar, correct? Just making sure. Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Okay. I knew that. That was just in case anybody listening wasn't sure.
Okay.
Um,
What was it called
so
in the US? Sorry, Taylor. What was it?
it's called FirstNet.
Okay.
FirstNet, short for First Network, I think.
Right. Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not familiar with
Um,
that as Graham, obviously. Yeah.
First Responder Network. Yeah.
Okay.
So John, I'd love to kind of start to wind down with just really how this change, having this cellular solution in the stations, has impacted the teams and impacted your life. So you've already talked a little bit about how troubleshooting is just phenomenal, maybe in comparison to what you've had before. They're not having to call and talk to Linda at her desk. You get to just do things from your portal. How else have these solutions impacted your operations? Has it like changed the way that teams can do their work? Have you noticed more efficiencies in other places? And can you talk about those?
So, yeah, obviously we touched on it. It's night and day for us to be able to interrogate those systems. But really, it's for us. Obviously, I say we're only using it, but we are only using it for this one application, if you like, at present. But moving forward, that's conversations we want to have to be able to really maximize its potential to help with our operations. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits for us, and these prior to today, Graham and I have been discussing a station visit, for example. So Graham and colleagues are going to actually visit one of our stations within Avon and spend a whole day with us and see holistically how we operate on the stations, and they'll be able to see the equipment on site as well, and be able to see it in its environment, and then we can really look at how we can move that forward for not only our station ends, but obviously have those conversations about how we can utilize the technology within our appliances as well, and all the benefits that brings.
We're going to try and use that as kind of a future-proofing art of the possible kind of session, Taylor, where we really delve deeper into what can the technology do, how can we help these guys on a day-to-day basis. So, and I also want to go on a ride on a fire engine as well. So that's cool.
Yes,
it's so fun. I don't care how old you are. You're just like, what? It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll pick a nice busy station, Graham. Don't worry.
Yeah. And I would say, and John, tell me if I'm projecting or if I'm kind of fluffing this up, but in an agency, like a fire agency, obviously the work that you guys do is critical. That doesn't really need to be explained any further. It can literally be life or death. So I would assume that having such a resilient connectivity solution in place, I would imagine that just brings people peace of mind too, at a minimum. Like it's just one less thing they have to worry about, so they can focus on the things that are in front of them, which are the most important things.
100%. Like I say, coming back to our department, if you like, we're kind of responsible, myself as a systems manager and us within the communications and control department. Obviously, we have control here, based here, that take the fire calls, if you like, but we're responsible for the mobile data terminals, the vision command and control system, the telephony that's associated with that, the mobile data terminals, the radios, the pretty much anything that isn't sort of our corporate communications, anything that's critical fireground communications is us. And so for us, so it is peace of mind 100%, but also the fact that we do not have to, interrogate so much, or certainly can interrogate any issues if they do occur, which is very few and far between. Then we can, because of that, it gives us that ability to be doing other things, and other projects, and obviously making our service stronger, which is key. So it's been a real game changer for us. It has to be said. So
good. Did you have any other? Yep. Okay. Mauricio's got another question. We're gonna get him teed up here.
So John, considering that the previous solution that you were using was, very much, radio based, right, as opposed to cellular, how difficult was it to convince people to adopt cellular technology in this use case? Was there, I guess my question was like, the radio solution worked, presumably, and unless it went end of life, there potentially wasn't going to be a look for a new solution. So, like, was there difficulty in convincing people to adopt cellular in this use case?
That's a really good question, and the answer is kind of no. Obviously, like I said, we have to provide due diligence, and we have to look at all the solutions that are out there. So that's exactly what we did, and we were advised they're not exactly the same, but it's kind of the same technology, radio bearer technology, um, and even there was as a sort of 2G capability at the time. Now, we all know that within the last sort of 12 months, they're say nationally, worldwide, they're looking at sunsetting 2 and 3G technology. So that's a route we could have gone down, and it would have placed us in a difficult place now, because we'd have to look again, if that makes sense. So just the way that the cellular technology works, and we've got proven cases where we use it on other applications like our mobile data terminals with that huge success. There wasn't any difficulty convincing anyone. It was obviously the way forward for us. So no, it was quite an easy win, that one, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
So, John, I have one last question for you, and that is really, now that Avon has this solution implemented, are there any like lessons learned or tips that you would share for other agencies who are thinking like maybe they want to go this route, but they're not sure? Like, what would you say to them?
Time. I basically, like I said, and I've been involved in lots of projects, so it didn't. It was. I knew straight away, basically, when we were given that notification that our old solution wasn't going to be available. Beyond that, we were given a lot of notice. We were given a year, so you would think, well, that's a lot of time. That's bags of time. We got all the time in the world. It just flies by, and I think, if Graham's right, there may be other services around, certainly the UK, that are maybe utilising PSTN as a secondary or tertiary bearer. And I know that date has, because it has been pushed, Graham, hasn't it? It was, I think, 25 they were looking at, and that's now been pushed to sort of early 27, which seems like a long time away. But I think the earlier people get on board and sort of start looking at another solution, the better, because the planning's better. If you can afford yourself that time, then you can get the right people in and have those conversations, and then do bench testing, and you can get the right working solution for you. So yeah, I would suggest that more than anything else. It's the two key things are time and having the right the right sort of people in the room, which we were so lucky we had both of. So yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, John and Graham, we've taken up a good chunk of your time today. And before we wrap up, John, is there a place where our listeners can go to just learn more about Avon and kind of the area or the work that you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got our website. We've also we do have Twitter feeds, and we've got LinkedIn, and I believe we've got an Instagram as well. So we're on all the social media places. But I'm not sure if a link can be placed on your on the show, but I can pass those to you and make sure that everyone's got that ability to have a look at what we're doing. So yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
I am so glad that we finally got to talk to John. Listeners, this one's been kind of a long time in the making, and so we've had a lot of time to anticipate it. And I love hearing kind of the fire agency culture and about the technology that's important to them, and how it's similar kind of no matter where you are in the world. These cellular solutions are still vital for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear, like, even as recently as a couple years ago, they were using, legacy radio technology as a backup. And, it was interesting to hear, like, when they're having trouble, like, they had to call somebody up who literally had to go point the dish at another antenna. And so, it's interesting to hear that, um, that they're relying on something like that as opposed to being able to, I don't want to say keep up with the times, because sometimes the tried and true methods are tried and true for a reason. But it's good to hear that they had experience with cellular, and so that made this transition a lot easier. And it's also good to hear that they're looking, now that they have this experience and they have this equipment, they're looking to see how else they could utilize this for making things more efficient for them, or solving other problems that they have with their communications.
And as they're future-proofing their network and expanding how they use these solutions, I appreciate that the advice that John left us for other agencies, he said 2 words: time and partners, essentially. And so I love that he emphasized, like, if you're on the fence, time is not necessarily on your side. So just do it. Like, it's worth it. But make sure you have a good team and a good partnership available to you to get that going. And it's pretty quick once you have both of those in place, and you can just take off.
Yeah, I think we've heard it in a few different episodes from a few different people leveraging different technologies, is that reaching out to people who have the expertise or have experience is just key. Like, don't be afraid to ask somebody in a neighboring company, or leverage your network to see if people have experience in deploying new technologies and what lessons they can learn in order to help kind of accelerate that, because time is that one resource that you never seem to have enough of. So like John mentioned, like they're under kind of a time crunch when this this radio network gets deprecated. And so 2027 seems like a long way off, but before you know it, it's here, right? I mean, just thinking yesterday was 2023.
Exactly. Well, thanks for listening to What's Your Signal. If you enjoyed today's case study, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.